This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
Three, two, one. Welcome to another Britflix.com podcast. My name is Stuart Wright, and today we're going to be discussing 2 short movies and 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. The 2 short films are Jungle and OGHAM, written and directed by Alan Hopkins and produced by Husni Hafid. We have the pair of them on the show, which means we're going to be discussing 6 films, not 3. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you so much for having us. Cheers.
Hey, sure. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Now, we met at Beeston Film Festival when you were screening OGHAM, and we had a fun time drinking some beers and talking films. So it now feels totally unnatural now to be talking formally on a podcast. So we're going to try and relax as we warm into it, I think, aren't we?
Yeah, we should have brought beers, and then we would have been back back out in the smoking area, and everything's grand, and our palms aren't sweaty.
Let's pretend we're at the back of the bus, just talking shite.
Yeah.
So let us start in reverse then. Let us start with Jungle, which, Alan, do you want to tell us what that's about? First and foremost, just give us a brief summary.
Yeah, so it's a drama set out in Calais. I know if you remember, there was the refugee camp out there that was termed Jungle, which has since been torn down. So it's about a truck driver who's passing through Calais in France, and he discovers a refugee hiding in the back of his truck.
Okay,
and played by Ari Nick, and he blackmailed them for passage into Calais. Oof. And then they're kind of forced through circumstances to spend the night together in the truck, and then they kind of learn a little bit about each other over the course of one evening.
And that's now going to be available to watch on TV on RTE very soon, I believe. Do you want to tell us when and how?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So it's going to be screening on the 1st of September on RT2, I think. I think Husni will be
they actually haven't given us an exact channel, but it will be on the RT. So one of the RT. So there's RT1 and RT2, and it's at the moment they still haven't decided exactly which one, but it's generally on RT2 is where these things play, and then it will be on the iPlayer then for 2 years after that. So it's like the RTE player basically.
Fantastic.
For 2 years, yeah. So we're really excited because it's always a labour of love, and basically how we kind of started working together. I suppose we can get into that through Jungle. We were kind of in university together, and Alan wanted to be a director, and we kind of didn't get into the directing pipeline. So we decided, why don't we just go and make a film anyway? Because we both kind of really wanted to make a film. So we started with this as our student film called Willetton's Way. And in a similar way, we kind of have been in contact ever since, have been friends, obviously. And then I had been over in London for a while, and Alan was still in Dublin, and we kind of decided, well, we haven't made a film in so long. So we kind of, even before that, we had put forward a lot of we put forward proposals, and we kept getting really close. So we'd be in the room and they still wouldn't give us funding. So we kind of just felt like maybe that we just needed to go do one.
We were kind of this. We were an untested thing, really. So it's a hard, when you're going in front of these local councils or whatever and trying to be entrusted with a lot of money. And the only thing we had at that point was our graduation film. So we were kind of said to ourselves, we can't just keep going through the cycle. There must be a reason why we're not getting it, because we believed in the work and we thought that the work was strong. So we said, but there must be something else. It's one of those things, instead of just banging your head against the wall, it's like, how do we get around it? So we decided to make Jungle independently and self-financed it. So I had been saving for a house at the time, and I decided that the money would be better spent on an independent film, because we all know how much money they make. So that was the plan. But Like in fairness, even though like these things don't make money, it's worked out well. It was kind of the making of us, and we kind of really haven't looked back since that came out. We've been working consistently since. So,
what did you find was the difference, if there was any at all, between students making a film together and then flapping in the wind of the free world, as it were, making a movie where it's really down to you, then, isn't it? No one's watching, nobody cares. Apart from those you get involved with making it. So how did you find that process for the first time working together, free from the sort of umbrella of college above you?
Well, it was new. The big thing for me was because we shot it in the UK, so we went into Kent doubled for Calais. We wanted to shoot in Calais, but we actually shot during COVID, and there was just so many restrictions, and even right up until we were about to film, we thought we could get shut down at any moment. So that was new for me. It was like working with a professional crew for the first time, and then working with a London professional crew for the first time as well. So, and then I had I didn't, have a huge body of work behind me, so that everybody was a bit, tentative and apprehensive on the first few days, I would say. But like, I think the good thing that we had on our side is because of the subject matter that we were dealing with, everybody had to buy in, from early. And I think that's something when you're making a film that's difficult. It's hard enough to make a short film, but I think when you know that you believe in what the story that you're telling, I think everybody can kind of get behind it. And, when it's like a long day or something like that, you can kind of say, well, look, this might be a long day, but it's nothing compared to the people who are in the camp on the other side of the channel, what people are actually facing. So then you can kind of say, oh, look, my first world problems here, my coffee's a bit cold on set or something like that. It just doesn't compare. So I felt that was nice. Like it was good that the crew were all on board from the get-go. We weren't kind of running into too much resistance, which was very helpful.
And what about you, Husni? What did you feel was challenging for you creatively or logistically?
I mean, really, I think one of the largest things was just the scale of this one. So, like, we kind of really had written it kind of like, funny enough, it's exactly kind of. Alan just kept it weird because he's calling me because we're on the phone to him, and he's like, well, it's just going to be two people, sat in a truck. And then here we are on day 3, and we had this recovery vehicle pulling the truck as we were filming, and it kind of felt like everything kind of got out of hand a bit very quickly. You know what I mean? You're always thinking it's just and I suppose, just the idea of like actually paying people and having that responsibility of having them work underneath you and trying to just kind of feel the difference between. I mean, we were lucky in that we there's some people I had worked with a costume designer before, and obviously Hannah had worked with us on our first film, who was the makeup artist, and she's brilliant. And obviously Paul is Paul McQuaid, who you met at Beeston, who's also an OGHAM. He's Alan's cousin as well as being such a fantastic actor. So we kind of had that kind of close-knitness in some aspects, which made it a bit easier. But it was just more about, getting everybody together and trying to keep morale up and trying to keep, everything just running on time. Because we had every day we were shooting somewhere different, which is in itself just quite a difficult. So we were
blessed. We were blessed with ignorance, I think would be the best way to describe it.
I was going to say,
I mean, one of those things, it was a massive undertaking, and we were just going like, we're just, it's just a truck. We're just going to, and then you kind of go, yeah, but how do you move the truck? And we didn't want to do green screen, and because like you'll see it in a movie now, like you'll see maybe if it's a 2-minute scene in a car, you can kind of forgive that it's kind of it's green screen or it's back projection or whatever it is. But if it's like majority of the film is taking place in a moving truck, if it's cat, like the whole movie, it's the look of the whole film. It's just the look of the picture, I think. Is that So, but and then, like that's the thing. We ended up, we were just like all of a sudden we're on like this Christopher Nolan set where we're like towing one truck with another massive truck down this motorway in England, and I'm like, how did we walk ourselves into this? I thought it was writing a play. I was like, it's going to be 2 guys in a truck. It's all just chat, real simple. And then next thing these things just grow legs. But I think, like you said, if we weren't so ignorant to how, like if we came from like a massive background in commercials or something like that, you just look at the script and go, no, you can't do that. Whereas we just go like, oh no, yeah, we'll figure it out. And then you end up finding these solutions. But it's like, I think we've done that on everything we've worked on. Like we had, even back to our graduate film, we had a car crash in it, and we were like, how are we going to do that? And we ended up like, it was like, the car was the car that we brought the crew to and from set from that day. and we like dismantled it at the side of the road, jacked it up into a ditch, and like made it look like it was just took all the wheels off and then put it back together again and put it like it was just one of those things. You just like when you don't know any better, you just find these solutions, crazy problems.
So not knowing any better, then how did it go from there to being on RTE? What's the route to getting a short film on TV? Because obviously it's not obvious, and short films don't often have that kind of life. So it's a really brilliant thing to have achieved.
Yeah, well, we're kind of pinching ourselves a bit because, so RTE does have a slot. Like, in fairness to them, they're very supportive of short films, and they do have a weekly slot where they show an Irish film every Monday, I think it is. But I think it's every second Monday, whichever it is. But they're still showing it, and but a lot of the times they're really high end stuff or something that's being made with support of Screen Ireland, or it's very rare I'll see an independent film in that slot. So it's like, for us, that's just amazing, because we made it, like, I think, I'm not sure how many years ago now, but it's one of those things, you make it to be seen by an audience, and then these things can kind of just languish on Vimeo unless you want to keep like resharing it and pushing it every week and annoying everybody. So just the idea that's going to have the second life now on the player, and hopefully people can come across it and see it and do exactly what you did, because it's one of those things you can look at it from this kind of like careerist view or something, say, well, look, it did enough so that we could make another film. But then you kind of go, no, I made it for people to watch, like, ultimately. So just to have that life there is crazy. The way we, just to answer your question without rambling too much, they do have an open link, so you can apply. So anybody can apply. Okay. I'm sure they get, like, some poor person is sitting in a room somewhere watching hundreds, if not thousands of entries every year. But we were lucky enough, we were selected. I'm not sure how many they pick a year, so it could be, if it's weekly, it's 52. If it's, so we're happy with being selected.
We were really, especially that it was jungle as well, because we kind of had just been online, and well, the real thing was, we kind of did say that what we wanted jungle for was to kind of get money to get a second one, and then eventually we ended up, after making jungle, we ended up making OGHAM shortly after. So we had applied with that in mind, and they had really enjoyed the film. So it's just to give this film a bit of life, obviously, because it's I mean, the whole idea of the refugee narrative has moved quite a bit since we actually made it, since we shot it in 2021. I think the whole landscape of politics has changed completely, but there's still another 50. They're saying there's going to be 50,000 crossings this year. I was just reading today, so it's still a massive issue, even though they have actually broken down the camp in Calais. But it's good to be able to keep the spotlight on it. I mean, especially after everything else that's going on in the world at the moment.
Indeed, we're not in a good place when it comes to tolerance and empathy. So, I was lucky enough to see that both as a jury member of Beeston Film Festival, and also then on the big screen at the Arc Cinema in Beeston. Do you want to tell me what was the sort of kernel of the idea that you started off with that gave us the film OGHAM?
Yeah, so I think even though it might seem like a very different film than Jungle, it's set during like the Irish famine. It's a period film. Very little to no dialogue, and when there is dialogue, it's in the Irish language. But I do feel there's I'm trying to have a narrative through line through the work. So it's about the impacts of colonialism ultimately, and settler colonialism particularly. So you see the impacts in Jungle when you see the migration of people, forced migration from war zones, and then in OGHAM, then it's really about famine and the loss of language, and then what happens to people when they're oppressed to the point where they try to remove their culture. So you remove their music, their language, their song, and the thing as well, and their food. So it's the thing with all you have left is your art and your music and your song. And I think that's I think one of the main reasons in Ireland where people always say we're great for storytelling and we're great for the sing song and everything else. But it's that when you take everything else away from people, what can you do but tell stories and sing songs? And it doesn't cost you.
No. You can't destroy an oral tradition, can you?
Yeah, and that with Owen, like the main character Owen, he's kind of the cipher of what we've lost. He represents an oral tradition that stretches all the way back, and then just thinking about what if this one guy doesn't make it, and then that's just a full stop then on any story that he's ever been told, any song that he's ever learned, and it's just gone, and we don't know what we lost, throughout the 1840s. We'll probably never know. And even though, like, luckily now the Irish language is having a resurgence, but it is like, it's just that was the kernel of it anyway. Just about how art can persevere in the worst of times.
Now, you talked about the production challenges on Jungle and shooting during COVID and on motorways in the UK. Now, from what I remember of our conversations, you didn't exactly pick an easily accessible location, did you? Did you just stick a pin in a map and go, yeah, let's go, let's find the place with least roads, the least access to take our kit to the place we want to shoot? What was just for the purposes of the podcast, just give a bit of the story there.
So, well, I would be an avid hiker and camper in my free time, and a lot of these places, although inaccessible with a lot of crew, they're not too bad when you're just hiking with a bottle of water or, like, a day pack with you. So I just, in my head, I was like, that's 40 minutes from the car, that's fine. But then you find you've got to drag a whole crew up onto the mountain. So everything had to be brought up on quad bikes with trailers, and it was again. This was us, like, just being mad, like one of those, like, there's a reason why people always, like, a lot of these films, especially in Ireland, because Wicklow is the place where everybody shoots. Ardmore shooters there and stuff like that. So anytime you see, like, a wooded area, it's generally like the Wicklow Mountains.
Okay.
But the Wicklow Mountains are like they're planted pine forests, which are not they'd be anachronistic if they were in this, because we didn't have the planted pine forest in the 1840s like the way they are there. Okay. So I was trying to find these pockets of land where there was that didn't look like the Wicklow Mountains, So we ended up in Jowes Valley, which was part of the Powerscourt estate. So that's another, like, it's funny how it ties back into colonialism, actually, because a lot of we were deforested nearly the entire island, but then on the land of the states, that's where the old forestry remains, because this is where they would hunt and go on the just on their nice walks around their manicured gardens. So they're the few places, these old estates, where you can still find, like, large oak trees and ancient forests, but they're not particularly accessible. So that was the headache that I laid on Husni's lap. But he provided everything I asked for. We got.
So Husni, just to give people an insight into your role as a producer, and can you sort of talk us through that, kind of straddling that bit between, like, developing the screenplay and then producing the thing on set?
Well, I mean, I always like to say it's a bit like if Alan's the architect, I'm the engineer. So he'll bring me the plans and I'll have to figure out how to make it viable with the budget and with the time that we have, basically. Mm-hmm. So with that, we had gone with the crew, had a recce, and then we decided that we wanted to shoot in Sligo to make it feel different as well. So from developing in we came up with this idea that we wanted it to feel like a real journey had taken place. So he's coming down from the mountain and he's going into the countryside, and it has to feel like he's going from different terrains, and that's why we kind of had to pick so many different locations on this one particularly. But just logistically, it makes it more difficult. But I would agree with Alan. I mean, I wouldn't go ahead with this sort of stuff if I didn't agree with him as well. So I kind of trust him artistically in what we're trying to do to like. Ultimately, if you want to do stuff that's never been seen before, it's always going to be difficult. So you kind of have to take that on the chin anyway.
Yeah, like in particular with that cave, that's the Keshcorn Caves in Sligo, and they're right up on the mountain. Like, so they're like maybe a 40-minute walk with gear, and that was inaccessible with like quads and stuff like that. So we didn't have any mechanical help there. Everything had to be kind of man-hauled up. So I think I did maybe 3 trips myself in the morning, just kind of passing everybody, trying to keep morale up and going, isn't this a lovely place to work today? And how exciting is this that we get to work in such a lovely place where people are just kind of hauling things up the mountain. But those Keshcorn Caves they're stunning. Like there was an early production, we were talking about, the potential of like making the set, making the cave as a set. But like, just like the production value you get from a real.
Well, I was going to say the bit. I remember that my first watch, and the thing that the immediate thing that maybe sit up and pay more attention than I was already paying was that kind of looking in from the cave out, and the silhouette of what's he called? Your actor. Sorry, my mind went blank there. It just looks so. The production value is out the wazoo by just obviously shooting it and lighting it well. So to that end, then walk me through some of the discussions you had with Piers McGrail, your cinematographer, about the look and feel, and in particular, maybe some of them more purposefully sort of stunning shots alongside, obviously, the ones that are meant to capture the drama as well.
Well, it's the thing, isn't it? They say it's like over prepare and then be prepared to improvise on the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had visited that cave numerous times. We'd done photographic storyboards. We had a lot of concept art and stuff that we shared between myself and Piers. And then that particular shot that you mentioned from the very back of the cave, that was on the day. I just realized it was like a back chamber, because it's you can't see it in the shot because it's from back, but that's like shooting out from a tiny little hole in the wall. And I kind of just saw the light was going through, and I was like, where does that go? And I went for a little wander to give the AD a headache, and I found that angle from in at the back. So that's in like a second chamber looking out down this thing. It kind of looks like, like the I was saying, it's like, in the James Bond thing, where you see down the barrel of the gun. Like, that's what it reminded me of. But and then I was like, can we just move the camera back here? And like, I gave everybody a headache. But like, it's one of those things you kind of go, you have to have that space in the, like, on the day, just like, this is going to be so much better than if we just stuck, slavishly to what we had planned.
Right. Okay.
But we got so that one there wasn't particularly planned, but like the location was and everything else, but that particular shot, which made you sit up in your seat. So it worked.
Well, look, thank you for sharing that little insight into two of your short films. Right then, we are going to talk about 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. Alan will go first, Husni will go second. So the rules of the game are quite simple. I've got 3 films from each of the filmmakers, and we'll do each one at a time, and we've got 5 minutes, and when the alarm goes off, that's our time to stop talking about that film and move on to the next one. I'm not a tyrant. You will be able to finish your thought, but given we've already had a reasonably good conversation about short films, I'm not going to let you talk that long after. Okay? For Alan's first choice, it resurrected a subject that was literally dying out until 1993. Interest in paleontology waned during the atomic age and space race, but according to Dr. Nate Smith of the Natural History Museum Dinosaur Institute, this film coming out generated an interest amongst young people to become paleontologists and get into the field. As a result, which this bit that blows my mind, new dinosaur species have been discovered since then at roughly at the rate of 50 new discoveries a year. All as a result of 1993's Jurassic Park. Mind blown. But tell us, Alan, unless you're going to tell me you're a paleontologist, what impact did this film have on you?
It's funny you should mention that, because I did actually apply for archaeology in my post-school application to college, but thankfully didn't get in. I didn't get enough points, so I fell back on the old filmmaking. But so Jurassic Park, nothing like a deadline to induce fear, but so 5 minutes. Jurassic Park for me is that movie. I think I was talking to Husni about, it's like everybody, like maybe a generation above us would be E.T. and that moment where they cycle across the moon, and then for me it was sitting in a movie theater and I was seeing those, I think they're brachiosaurus or brontosaurus, but that bit where, when they open, it takes that big leap up onto its hind legs and takes the bite out of the tree and then drops back down and the whole cinema rumbles. And I think, I know it says 93, but this is my really bad research. I think it might have came out in 94.
Okay.
I was like, maybe, I'm not sure.
It may have been maybe the States in 93.
Yeah, because I was thinking that I'd be a bit young in 93, but I did see it in the cinema. I can remember it very fondly. But in terms of impacting my entire adult life, that film was the one that captured the magic. And you've been kind of chasing that dragon ever since, of like, oh, this is it. This is the thing, like, and I know it, like, see, the other thing is most people just watch a movie and love them and then they just continue watching them. But that was the one where I was like, how did they do that? How did they make that? And I don't think it's kind of come up in conversation a lot lately around, like, the pressures on CGI artists and how we're not seen the quality that we were seeing. Like, even I haven't revisited Jurassic Park in a while now, but like if you go back to it, it holds up so well. Like that marriage of practical effects and the computer generated effects was just unbelievable. And it just, you know what as well, it's still like, it's just such clever filmmaking. Everything he does in it, like, you know, it's like, even like when he uses things, when he doesn't use things, the way the nighttime sequences for the T-Rex, when he decides to use puppetry and not, like, it's just.
You're talking about the creative choices that Steven Spielberg made, you mean?
Yeah. And I was looking, and Dean Cundy, the DP, who was just stunning work. This is like reading back the list. I was like, I couldn't believe I didn't even know he had done a lot of the stuff he had. He'd done The Thing, and he'd done all the Halloween and stuff like that.
So where did you see this in? Where did you see? You say you saw it in the cinema. Then what's the cinema you saw it in?
The UCI in Tala.
Okay.
In this square, which was like the place that was of magic and fear for me, because I remember I was always like just too young to be going to see the film that I was going to see, you know.
Yeah.
Like walking up the steps and trying to like remember like getting into a nightclub or something. It's like, what was my date of birth again? But my parents brought me to see that one because I was like 5 maybe, but I do remember my brother was absolutely terrified, and he'd be delighted that I'm mentioning this now. But the bit where the lawyer is eating, you know, when he like it busts through the toilet and bites him up off the toilet. He had a baseball cap on, and it was just buried over his eyes. He couldn't look at it. He was so terrified. Excellent. It was one of those things that just was like, a seminal experience, because I was just everything after that. Then I was just the magic of it. I just couldn't get it enough.
So are you saying that this film kind of made you aware that there was people that made films, or was it trying to work out how they did it?
No, it was like, this was just the one that made me, like, you know, religiously watch films for the next, the rest of my life. You know, it was the one where I was like, because like I had seen, obviously watch films like Saturday morning films, all that sort of stuff, but it was this kind of marriage of you've the score and the special effects, and then the sound, that Dolby Atmos, like the whole screen rumbling when they take the steps, you know. It was just that marriage of everything together. That was I think you could say, be the love of the cinematic experience, as opposed to, you know what I mean, just like watching and loving films. It was like getting that into the dark room and feeling those speakers.
And what would have been the scene you'd have been talking about back in the playground then after watching it? We'll never know. We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Right then, Husni, for your first movie, French duo Air composed the music score for this one, because the director didn't want 1970s hits getting in the way, and rather wanted a consistent soundtrack. She also found that Air shared many of her suburban memories and experiences, even though they grew up in different countries. Thurston Moore of Sonic Youth originally gave the novel of this film, which I think tells you a lot about the filmmaker, to the filmmaker to read, and after she read it, she decided she's going to make that movie. What I didn't know was somebody was already producing a adaptation of the book that this film's based on, and obviously that scuppered her plans in a temporary sense, but then found out, I'm guessing because of who she is, that they were not too happy with the script they had for that production. She shared her version that she'd already written, and they decided to go with that. And the rest, as they say, is history. I'm talking about 1999's Virgin Suicides. So tell me, Husni, how did this have an impact on you, and what are the fond memories attached to it?
I think, funnily enough, right, the first time I seen this film was on TV, so I would have been in Libya, right? So we used to go back to Libya every summer when I was a kid.
Right.
And honestly, I watched so many films on, it was like NBC2, but like I don't know whether it must have been easier for them to get rights, or I don't know why, but they just had a constant stream of films on. And I remember, like, obviously those summers used to go on forever, and we'd watch every, like, so many movies. But what I didn't know at the time was that they used to have, they would edit them to make them a bit more religiously, and just, well, for lack of a better word, it's just to not show any like sexual, like there was a lot of sexual scenes cut out of these films because they were like so anti like the Islamic laws. But all the violence was fine, which I found was really funny. Like they would be happy with like all of these violent things is absolutely grand, but like they would have to cut out these things. But I suppose with the virgin suicides, there was a couple of things that really stuck out with me, even that I get even more now rewatching it. Is like is how the whole thing is about how these men looking back at their childhood, like kind of seeing how these suicides kind of affect the whole neighborhood. It's like, but the nostalgia of memory and how effectively she was able to kind of capture that. And it's funny, you were talking about Air with the 1970s hits, but now they're all 1990s classics, which is kind of funny that like she didn't want this to be but as well, just the use of color and even the way that the way like her narrative devices. So obviously the use of the use of narration, but even bits where there's like Lux, he's talking about his relationship with Lux, and she's kind of put him in this like it almost feels like a retirement home or something, but he's just chatting to the camera, and there's just so many little moments in that as well. And I kind of just really connected as well with how these children were kind of quasi very religious, and they were being brought up in this neighborhood, and it kind of made me feel a bit like I had that kind of feeling a bit. And I suppose there might be a bit why I picked, which I'll talk about Donnie Darko later, but there's that kind of feeling of the outsider as well that can kind of really connect to somebody, especially when you're a teenager and growing up and you kind of feel out of place in the world. But and yeah, the soundtrack just mind blowing, really. Like, yeah, the fact that she worked with them and it's just crazy. And just, I really think that it was amazing for a debut to burst onto the scene like that. And, and like to work, especially now that we've done it a bit, but like to work with kids as well, and to have like the kind of younger kids is such a difficult thing to do as your first film as well, to take on such a topic and to direct them. So I've just really thought it was such a special movie, just the way she kind of played around with it.
So you said,
especially
go on, sorry,
but especially how she kind of really captured the way that the public viewed that family as well. It's like she really captured like the kind of subtext of how the whole neighborhood viewed them. It was really struck with me how she did that as well, like how she kind of took the geopolitical aspect of it as well, and kind of how everybody else perceived them, and did it and played it so beautifully. But yeah, you were going to say something, yeah?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you saw it first when you were in Libya, and then and if there was any kind of censorship going on, or
with the scene with them on the football field, I think was probably the one that was probably cut out a little bit. But they had them just waking up in the morning, so Lux like loses their virginity with this guy what's his name, Josh Hartnett's character. But like they've cut out that. And
but was good. I was just going to ask though, when you saw it. When you saw it in Ireland, then when you were back in Ireland and watched it, what did it feel like a different film?
Do you know what? They're actually quite good at they were quite like good at like cutting the right things out and like not making it feel like they'd done it. So clearly,
there we go.
I was saying that they
finish your thought. Go on.
Yeah, just that this ministry must have been very talented. They must have had years of experience in this sort of censorship. So they were quite ruthless and good at it, I would say.
For Alan's second choice, the actor originally cast as the architect who rings the rich man's door didn't show up, so the director played the part himself. He later wanted to reshoot the scene with another actor, but his lead refused to redo it with anyone else. Of the film's two lead stars, actress Sissy Spacek was cast first. Actor Martin Sheen came on board after, and he still reckons it's his finest film to date. And Sissy Spacek met her future husband on set, art director Jack Fisk, and they ended up doing 8 films together as a married couple. I'm talking about Terrence Malick's directorial feature film debut, Badlands. Tell us, Alan, how do you see this? How does it impact you, and what are its fond memories attached?
Well, if Jurassic Park was the one that lit the spark, this was the one that kind of changed how I view film, really. So I went to a school that, I won't name it, but it could kindly be described as like a youth offenders institute. Basically, it wasn't a home of the arts.
Okay.
And I had this English teacher, and I think they just added film onto the syllabus or whatever it was, but I couldn't tell you one book he gave me, but he dragged in the TV one day and he put on Badlands, and it just changed everything for me. It was the first time that somebody had engaged with film as an art form, or even just presented it to me as such. I grew up like I said, watching Jurassic Park and Amblin movies and Independence Day and whatever, like I could just consumed American blockbusters. And then this was the first kind of time that someone was saying, no, this can be a higher art form. Mm-hmm. And then Badlands was a great introduction for that as well. But it was just such a beautiful film, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen up to that point. And I think it was just from there, it just sent me down the rabbit hole. So with Terrence Malick particularly, I spent like, my late teens and all trying to be a moody teenager watching Terrence Malick movies and thinking I was really deep. But from there. So like in terms of like its impact on my adult life, I think it's probably had the most of any single film.
Okay.
Just in terms of how I viewed films and how I just seeking out different types of films,
So in your life then, there's a time before Badlands, and then there's everything else after.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Like I'd be like a voracious watcher. I'd watch everything, but it's just like the thing in Ireland is we're kind of, we've got these dual monoliths on either side of us, so we just get washed over with like American blockbusters and then the British films as well. So just to try and like put through that to get to something that, even though this is an American movie, but just to get like, to get something like we'd go, I'm sure it's the same in the UK, but you go to the multiplex and it'd be Independence Day and Armageddon on 27 screens, and it's very like, it's like, the other thing was I wasn't really versed in the art, so I didn't have like a mentor or someone that would bring me to. We do have our house cinemas in Dublin, but I wasn't going to them. I didn't know about them. So so that just this English teacher, Connor Kelly was his name. I was trying to remember. So Mr. Connor Kelly, there you go. Yeah, teachers can have an impact, but it just kind of goes to show as well, like that idea of access. Like if he hadn't shown that to me, I don't know, like not that like my life would be completely different, but it definitely set me off on a different path in terms of my engagement with cinema anyway.
But it also suggests that that your radar was on. You didn't know what you were seeking out, but there was a radar on of some description for you to receive the signal, wasn't there?
Yeah, I just knew, because that was the other thing. It was like I do recall like the rest, not like everybody else in the class. I can't speak for all of them, but I did feel like nobody else seemed to be interested in what I was watching, and I was like, is anyone else seeing this? Because it's so different, and it's like, I don't know, maybe not in the context of the 70s, but in the context of me watching it compared to everything else I was watching at the time, it really stood out to me that this is like, oh, this is someone that's doing, like, they're not giving me what I want, or that, like, even the the unreliable narration and stuff like that. There was just all these different like concepts that, like, at 14 or whatever age I was, it was completely new to me. Like, because I remember I had seen, it wasn't the first Terrence Malick film I'd seen. I had seen The Thin Red Line. I remember I rented The Thin Red Line. It came out the same year as Saving Private Ryan, and I was far too young. Like, so I rented that out, expecting to get this flag waving popcorn fare that I had just got.
Finish it up.
Yeah, so I just said, like, I rented out expecting to get this flag waving popcorn fare, the Spielberg view of World War II, and then I got this Terrence Malick's version of World War II, which I was just too young, and I was like, what is this? I didn't even know how to engage with. And then come maybe 4 or 5 years later, when Badlands was introduced me, I was able to return to all his work, and that Catcher in the Rye thing, isn't it? It's like, you just, like, every time you rewatch it, you're a different person, and you can take something a bit deeper from it.
Amazing. For your second choice, Husni, the opening chat in the prison yard, in which one of the characters throwing a baseball, took 9 hours to shoot, because the director insisted on many takes of the scene before he was satisfied. The actor who threw the baseball for the entire 9 hours did so without a word of complaint. He showed up to work the next day with his arm in a sling. Stephen King never cashed his $5,000 check that he got paid for the rights to the film, rights to the book that the film's based on, And several years after the movie came out, King got the check framed and mailed it to the director, Frank Darabont, with a note inscribed, "In case you ever need bail money, love, Steve." I'm talking about 1994's Shawshank Redemption. So tell us, where does this fit in your film memories, and why does that have impact on you?
I mean, look, this is the film that I can consistently go back and watch. And I was even discussing with this to Alan about this earlier. Was it like basically is the film that I'll put on that will actually change my mood more than anything else, like, because it gives me such a sense of hope. Okay. So really on a kind of, it's almost my therapy, really, like, to say, not even like to use that term lightly. Like, it's every time I watch it, I kind of get something new out of it. And it's just really the way that the story is structured and the way, like, even just it plays out. Because I can remember distinctly the first time I watched it, I think it was on Film 4, and just to watch, and they had a bloody ad break just before he went through the hole in it. So, like, yeah, that only added to it. So it's just like the film cut off when you thought he killed himself. So you had to wait an extra ad break before you realized he didn't. But yeah, no, that really, like, it really stuck with me. And, like, obviously the really, now looking back as someone who knows more about film than when I watched it back then, I mean, his cinematography, Roger Deakins' cinematography, is so incredible in that film. It really, really, like, stands out, and to even do so in a prison setting is makes it even more valuable. You know, just looking back now, how difficult that must have been to create it felt so big in such a small space. Because I believe they actually rented out an old institution. It was all mental institution that they had rebuilt to shoot the film. But yeah, the performances were amazing, and the fact that it really didn't catch fire until the DVD sales, I believe, that's how the film kind of came out. And now it's become the most rented DVD of all time. It became at one stage. But really just the story of hope and how something could live on for so long, and like the idea of a friendship as well, because there's a lot of films based on love, but this is just pure friendship between two people, and how meaningful that can be, you know, and how much they learn from each other. It really, really, every time I watch it, it really just makes me feel like I can achieve things that maybe I wouldn't feel I could have. So that is kind of the reason I love it so much. And it really gave me that idea. And like, as Alan was saying about, like, this, you can do something, is like, if you can make something like that could change how people view their day, even yet alone their outlook on life. It's such an amazing achievement to tell a story like that. And it's strange, he hasn't, like, he obviously did The Green Mile, and it's kind of, I feel like I've kind of picked a lot of directors here that the beginning of their career was really massive, and then it kind of just fell off, obviously with Donnie Darko coming up next as well. But yeah, he kind of made The Green Mile after this, and then he made The Majestic, which I felt was a bit it's still it's a nice film, but like it doesn't, like, it's kind of a bit, I suppose, if it can get too stroppy, but I feel like or not stroppy, but what's the word for it, too nostalgic. But this, I think he did a perfect job. And even just the little bits where, like, the last shot of the film on the beach, and they weren't supposed to have that. So basically in the script, it was supposed to be like, I hope that the Pacific is as blue as it is in my dreams. And it was just supposed to be the shot of the bus going into Mexico. But then the studio made him shoot the last shot. But I still think it works very well. But yeah, no, the studio had kind of a few things, a few notes for him, but he seems to have, like, kind of nailed everything down really, really well. But
it's a beautifully written film. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just that, like, there's so many even little things. So we kind of studied it actually in uni. So that's how me and Alan, but it was kind of even just the, like, he's going, oh, those are just shitty pipe dreams, and then he's like literally crawling out of the thing in the shitty pipe. And there's so many just little nuggets like that, and that's why I think it's so watchable for me over and over again. And just even the Mozart, like, stealing off that scene where it's like everybody's listening to it, it's just, there's so many little scenes like that. I could just, I had rewatched it now just before we did this interview, but it really stood out.
What's a favourite scene then? Oh, there we go. We might we'll never know your favourite scene either. I keep that wasn't on purpose, by the way. I wasn't looking at it.
I know.
That's not a timer. That's just a button. He just presses it.
I asked that question, press the button, and then you off. For Alan's final choice, while on location in Marfa, Texas, No Country for Old Men was a neighbouring film production. One day, the director of Alan's third choice and his crew tested the pyrotechnical effects of the oil derrick fire, causing an enormous billowing smoke intruding onto the shot that Joel and Ethan were shooting. So much so, they had to delay filming for a whole day. Both this film and No Country for Old Men would eventually become the leading contenders at the Academy Awards a year and a half later. And this I didn't know. Daniel Day-Lewis improvised the speech he gives to citizens of Little Boston about building schools, bringing bread. And Paul Thomas Anderson said, it was delicious. It was Plainview on a platter. I'm talking about 2007's There Will Be Blood. Tell us, Alan, how does this have an impact on you, and what fond memories do you have?
Well, I'm going to tell you, this is starting off. This is a bit of a cheat.
Go on.
And I'm going to try and do my best to cheat on this in the 5 minutes. So, as I've chosen There Will Be Blood, it's kind of like it's There Will Be Blood / the year 2007.
That's okay.
So, yeah. So, like what? So, if you bear with me, I'll try and build it out from there. But 2007 was my first year in film school. I went to a community college to do film before I ended up going to the National Film School, because I had to go around the way because I didn't become an archaeologist, as we said. A paleontologist, sorry. But 2007 was my first year in film school, and we were just going, when you're like in your early 20s, when you just know all the cool music. And I felt like 2007 was like the time when I just was like all about cinema. I still am, but that was like, I felt like I was going to the cinema every other day, and there was just an absolute embarrassment of riches of quality cinema. It's the year before the man with the goatee comes out in the iron suit and cinema changes, and everybody's in capes and flying around and doing that for the next, So up until today, like a new exciting director makes a film, like John Watts makes Cop Car, and then he spends the next 15 years making Spider-Man movies. There's nothing wrong with it, but that's where we found ourselves. And so when There Will Be Blood came out, it was that time where it's like, I felt like all of these excellent directors were just on the absolute top of their game and making just amazing work. So you had like There Will Be Blood, and like you mentioned, literally, 100 miles, or not 100 miles, a couple of miles away, they're making No Country for Old Men. So you have like Deakins doing insane work with the Coen brothers. Then you've got Robert Elswit working with Paul Thomas Anderson and making amazing work, amazing performances. And then also in the same year, like Robert Elswit shot Michael Clayton. Like the both of them came out there all 2007.
Okay.
Like in the insane list of films that come out that year. And I just felt it was like the last time that we had that kind of like that raft of adult cinema that was just coming through. And I just, like I'm young and not realizing that there's this absolute embarrassment of riches, and just being able to go to cinema every week. So if you look now, like it just isn't, the breadth of quality and selection is not the same. It just isn't for many different reasons. But it was that thing with There Will Be Blood where I just felt like I felt like Paul Thomas Anderson, that was like his greatest work. Like I love Boogie Nights, I love a lot of his work, like, but it was that film just felt like he was just firing on all cylinders. You had like Jack Fisk, who you mentioned earlier, who was very young in his career when he did Badlands, and by the time he's doing There Will Be Blood, like the production design on that is insane. Like the stuff they were that they built for it, these massive vistas. Like when he's moving through that thing when the oil derrick is exploding, like you're just like, I actually just saw it on a re-release recently in Cineworld, and Cineworld RIP. But the speakers were broken in the screen, but it was still an insanely visceral experience watching it, even though like even with the speakers not working. But so that's my cheat, is that in terms of like affecting my adult life, it was like my first year in film school, and I felt like it was like the time where I was just watching, the last time that I can remember where I knew everybody and who was making what and who was on the go up. Like those films, like I don't know if you've seen like The Lookout with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Scott Franklin, like excellent film. All these kids, like even like, so I was taking in the bit like the main stuff, and then I was getting like I was looking at who was on the up, and I was even knew what actors were about to break, and I feel like after that you had 2008, you have Marvel, also you have like the financial crash, and I feel like politics started to take up. Oh, there you go. Don't talk about politics.
I'm just going to ask one question to ask you though. If that was your first year at film school, looking back now, what lesson did you learn in that first year of film school that you still find useful to this day?
You can learn more not going to film school and watching movies than you can go to film school. No, they had listen. No, we were just like, it was, I was going, that year was like, it was a community course in Ballyfermot College, which is a really practical course, excellent really, in terms of like, you could take the gear out and just go and shoot. And we had this proximity to, like, there was a View cinema really close to us. So we would just jump in the car and just go. And like, it felt like nearly every day we like, if there was something out, I got to see it on the big screen, which isn't always the case now. Like I try and see new releases on the big screen where possible, but it's nowhere near the amount of films I was seeing that year. If I had a letterbox at the time, the thing would be melting, you know.
Right then. Moving on to Husni's final choice. This was filmed over a period of 28 days, which is beautiful because that matches the length of time depicted in the film, which I presume that was on purpose. Patrick Swayze wore his own clothes from the 1980s for this film, and the Jim Cunningham's Cunning Visions infomercials were shot at Swayze's ranch in Lakeview Terrace, California. It was Seth Rogen's feature film debut, and at the wrap party for the film, the actor playing the titular role and Seth Rogen both agreed that they had no idea what the movie was about. I'm talking about Richard Kelly's genre-bending feature film debut, Donnie Darko, which has been trailed, but I felt like I had to pretend there was a surprise there. So tell us, how does this have an impact on you, and what are your fond memories of it, and did it make sense?
Do you know what's so funny is that, like, I honestly, I felt like I knew exactly what it meant. And then I watched, this is probably one of the first few things that I watched at the director's cut, and it kind of almost ruined it for me rather than helped. Yeah, the editor did a great job in kind of cutting out just enough to make it magical, really, because I think part of the feeling of the film is, I've heard a quote from Jake Gyllenhaal, as he says, everybody every day comes up with a different meaning for it, and it just makes me smile because it means that everybody's pulling something different out of that film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the film just felt so full of youthful energy for me, especially, and I love the idea that it's his directorial debut, and you could really kind of feel the youth and in the style, and like it just felt like, you know, like a punk rock kind of film to me, anyways, and how just it really exploded. It made me feel like I could make films. I'd probably seen it for the first time when I was 14. So there was like a blockbuster in Sligo. And as Alan was saying earlier, like if you were trying to get art house cinema in Dublin, try getting some in Sligo at the time. I mean, you had like, it was one cinemaplex, and it was all, if it wasn't the blockbuster, that wasn't really being played. Like I don't think I watched anything with subtitles in the cinema there ever, really, to be honest. But yeah, the first time I watched Donnie Darko, it just all the music, it was like some of the first time I was like really hearing those 80s tunes, and just the way the narrative kind of bent. Also that it just kind of made like, it felt like a bit more of an avant-garde like high school movie, as opposed to like, and I wasn't really watching like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, or none of that had really like been open to me at the time. But yeah, I feel like it kind of gave me that, like the way the dialogue was sent, it was just so good, and the way they kind of were still making fun of each other in the school, and they're like talking about the Smurfs and Smurfette and all. Like it just made me feel very at home, or I felt like I could really what would be the best way for it? I felt really like where the characters were being portrayed, the people who looked like me, as again like the outsiders on screen. Not that I look anything like Jake Gyllenhaal, but and just the really
Persian prince.
Yeah, exactly. But
what I'm going to ask it before because I know I'm nowhere near the bell. What was the favourite scene then for you? What in terms of that first watch, and then now you go back to it? Is there a different point of the film?
I mean, probably, funnily enough, like one of my favourite scenes was him talking about knowing the Smurfs. Like if I initially take out, because everybody was just like trying to make a joke about it, and then he had clearly it had affected him, and he'd been such a nerd about it, and the way he even delivered the line that he knew all about Gargamel's love and all, it was brilliant. But it's now that kind of like sticking back to me when I'm watching it lately, like I'd still be one of my favorite scenes, like actual shots in cinema, is the Dutch tilt when he's coming out of the bus, and it's like everything changing, and like him being able to tell the whole story of the high school with no dialogue, and it's just the Tears for Fears and the camera moving through everybody and like kind of telling everything visually there, like without having to use a single line of dialogue. even though he's clearly so good at it. Kind of makes me sad is that, like, we used to discuss this. It's like, if that was his first film and he did Southland Tales, but there's been nothing since, and it's been like over like 25 years. Like, I don't know what happened to him there, Richard Kelly, but it's kind of a bit sad.
Yeah.
I've heard like them talking, what was it saying? It was like that somebody should have put an arm around his shoulder, basically, like, and helped him, but nobody really took him as a mentor or as a mentee.
And most of us could live a whole life without making one Donnie Darko. So I'm sure, like, even if you had one movie like that, I'm sure you'd die happy, you know. Give him a break. Oh no, it's scary.
Ragging on. I'm not. There's our timer. Thank you guys for sharing with me 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life, and also for telling us some stories behind the making of Jungle and OGHAM. It just gives me to say thank you very much to give us your time on the podcast.
Thank you for giving us a chance.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, it's really been beautiful. I've had a really good
usually
time.
A smoking area when I'm rambling about films, so it's nice to have it in a formal setting.
Hello, travellers. Do you enjoy dark fantasy? Fancy some duets? Or maybe you're just in search of a long-form D&D campaign. Something to drown in when you're bored. Aimer Ace and Niles Wilhelm here on behalf of the Wayward Inquisition to let you know that they are your destination. Filled to the brim with all the glorious stories that you've been looking for, the Wayward Inquisition brings content that will have you wondering just what sorcery do these jesters possess. Give them a try. It's no skin off your bone. Unless Tyrell's involved, then it might be, but either way, go give them a listen. I promise you won't regret it.